Local stories, local people. We're taking you inside Western Mass news. It's the Even Better Western Mass podcast with Dave Madsen.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Wherever you are, hope you're doing well. Election day is over. Fallout from Election day seems to be far from over. Only time will tell about that. So let's get to this week's podcast. This week, we're going to look at the Young Professional Society of Greater Springfield. The mission of YPS is to give young businessmen and women an outlet to exchange ideas and interests and to connect them with the Greater Springfield business community. My guest is the president of YPS, Amie Miarecki. Amie and I talk more about the mission of YPS and how young professionals can get involved. Amie, first, thanks for being a guest on this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Good to see you.
Thank you, Dave. I'm proud to be here and representing YPS. Thank you for having me.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit about YPS, but why don't you tell our folks watching and listening a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. I actually just started a new position with Christopher Heights of Northampton. I'm the Marketing and Admissions Director. And I'm really proud to be back in the elder care professional world. I love working with elders and making sure that they have a home that they can be happy and thriving in. And I'm really happy to be part of this team. I am originally from Longmeadow, but now I live in East Longmeadow. And I have a 4-year-old daughter and a husband named John.
So you're a busy lady.
I try to be. I like to be involved in as many things as possible. Of course, the pandemic has changed that a lot. My schedule is a lot less full, but really trying to keep myself busy and network as much as possible.
Sure. So let's talk about YPS. Give us a little background about YPS and their mission.
Thank you. So YPS was founded, believe it or not, in 2007 by a group of, I call them visionaries, that said to themselves, we need a place where we can feel really comfortable with our peer group and network and make referrals to each other's businesses and get to know one another. That wasn't like a traditional networking environment. We are a nonprofit, an independently run nonprofit, so we are entirely run by volunteers at this point. We have a wonderful board of directors, and we represent a lot of individuals in the community, regardless of their age. We never ask our members their age. So it's young professional is completely self-identified. And we really say that we are a group that wants to be involved in our community, wants to make, as I mentioned, make new businesses thrive here. We want people to live, work, stay, and play in Western Mass. We are really excited about all the things that are going on in Springfield. And we want to be a part of those and actually make things happen as well.
Now, your mission and your members really run counter to the theory that young people don't want to get involved these days.
I can't believe people say that. I don't know many young people that aren't interested in meeting new people, that aren't interested in making sure that their business is thriving. If anything, I think the pandemic, for instance, has made people even more motivated. People really need an outlet, and YPS tries to be that for people.
What are your members telling you about the impact on them of this whole COVID-19 pandemic and how they're dealing with it?
I think the main thing I've seen is there are a lot of entrepreneurs that were hiding behind desk jobs or hiding behind other careers. And they now see that they need a second income. They need some kind of quote unquote side hustle that they can do in case things don't work out with their main job. And so we've seen a lot of members and new members that are entrepreneurial. They have that mindset and they want to connect with people that are also interested in making connections. And we really try to be that for them.
Really force people to think outside the box.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. Think outside of the box. What does our community need? What can I sell? What am I good at? And, that service mindset too, where, you have to use social media to your advantage. And certainly the younger population understands that people want to be marketed to on social media and they have to have that kind of presence. So YPS tries to do that as well. We really try to be a good platform for people to get their business out there.
Is part of YPS's mission too looking at colleges around here? And because you hear so much about young people going to college here in Western Mass, they like the opportunities they see out here, but once they graduate from college, they tend to leave the area and look for other markets where they might be able to make more money.
And in full disclosure, Dave, I was one of those people that went to UMass Amherst, and then left for Boston for many years. And when I got married, I moved back here, and this has been the best decision. I have been much more successful here than I think I could have been in Boston at this age. And I think it was a great decision for me. YPS was a huge reason why I've been able to make professional and personal connections. And I have a lot to thank of the group of people I've met at YPS for helping me with that. But I think for YPS, we certainly target the colleges. We do have really good relationships with several of them. And we're always looking for new partners, always looking for new ways to work with the career development centers, for interns. We actually have interns from local colleges as well that help us. As we said, we're all volunteer run. So interns have been really crucial for us as well. But certainly people who are thinking about leaving Western Mass because they're not sure about their job prospects should come to YPS, talk with us, meet some new people. As I mentioned, we're a very inclusive, very welcoming group, and we want people to stay here, and we want them to be either starting a business or working in one of the businesses where they can be happy and maybe settle down here.
My guess too is that YPS can be very therapeutic for young people just getting into the business world right out of college.
Absolutely.
They're usually no low man or woman on the totem pole and can be pretty intimidating.
I agree. And that's actually part of the reason that YPS was started as well. Some of those visionaries said to themselves, we need sort of that low threshold inclusive group that we can be ourselves with and just feel like, we might bumble a little bit in our elevator pitch about our business, but this is a forgiving group. And, I think that over the years, YPS has really developed that reputation where people can come and feel like they can meet people and leave and really have a connection made, that somebody really will sit down and have lunch with them or meet up for coffee. And that's really what you're going to do for networking. You want to meet one or two people that you can follow up with that makes a meaningful connection, whether it's about business or just about making friends.
Sure, networking more important today. I know if you look at my generation and actually my parents' generation conceivably would have one job for all of their life. My generation, maybe one or two jobs, staying in the same career. But now you hear about young people today that not only will they have a number of jobs over their lifetime, but they'll have a number of different careers.
That is true. And I think, I think a lot of that is just growth, and I think it can be a positive. I think if people are learning more about themselves as they leave college, I would be a great example of that. I thought I was going to be a social worker, and I went to college thinking that, maybe even a clinical therapist. And I'm certainly not doing that now. I'm doing marketing. And if I had done marketing in college, perhaps I would have had a great trajectory as well. But I think you have to learn about yourself. And part of that is putting yourself out there and seeing what you're good at. And if you don't do that, well, then you might not ever be satisfied. And so the younger generation, so to speak, I think they're more about that exploration and more about fulfillment than perhaps other generations have been before. And again, I can't say enough about how YPS is forgiving in that way. If you change your career a few times, we're not going to penalize you for it. We want you to be happy.
What's the biggest misconception that maybe folks of my generation or even older have about young people going into the business world? Because I know oftentimes we hear about the Me Too generation that, I want the 9-to-5 job and I want the best kind of job and I want, the big money right now.
Well, I can't speak for that generation, but I think one of the stereotypes about younger generations perhaps is that they aren't as interested in working hard, that they're more interested in the work-life balance. And I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a real positive. When you come to work, you're there to work. Your mind is on your work. And when you're at home, your mind should be on your family and your friends and your hobbies and what makes you happy outside of work. And so I actually see it as a real positive that if people are willing to compartmentalize that way, that can be much more healthy than working till midnight, getting up and working again from 8 to 5. I think people nowadays really realize that your home should be a sanctuary and that, you have to protect it. And part of that might be having that work-life balance, that you really are focused and present in the moment when you're where you're supposed to be. So if you're at work, you're present on work. When you're at home, you're present in your home.
COVID-19 has really put a strain on that work-life balance, though, hasn't it?
It absolutely has. And, I have definitely seen in my personal life and even with myself when I was working from home that it's really hard to have a family and be home because you expect yourself to, as I was saying, be present in one place when you really have to be in too. You're at home, but you're also at work. So it's really hard to separate that way. So perhaps, having outlets where you can get outside in nature, you can network, whether it's Zoom or, meeting up for coffee, of course, socially distant. But just taking those breaks, those mindset breaks where you can recenter yourself and ground yourself back to where you need to be. But the pandemic has pushed us. It's really pushed our limit. And that's why at YPS we're focused a lot on fun. What are the things that people can do where they can connect with people, but it's low pressure and they don't have to talk about work because they've probably been looking at a screen all day anyway. Now they're looking at a screen networking. We want them to have fun. So we do things like trivia. We tried to have some DJs that were doing some live Facebook live DJ shows, just things that are out of the box, as you said, to have some fun.
It has added a lot of extra pressure. And the other element of this too is you have more and more people who have been working from home during COVID-19, but also may continue to work from home for the future.
For the future, absolutely. The foreseeable future is going to be that work from home model for a lot of different industries. And so people have to adjust, and really employers have to adjust, I think, too. We have really great partners at YPS, employment partners that are looking to keep quality individuals working in their companies. And part of that is realizing that their employees need outlets and their employees do need some separation from work and personal life. So really, the more that we can offer them as far as giving them, certain times that they need to be at work and not feeling they have to be on that computer all day just because it's in their living room and so are they, that kind of a mindset, I think is really going to work where there's that open line of communication. What is the expectation? Is the expectation 8 to 5 or 8 to 4, or is the expectation on call all the time? Because I don't know it's sustainable to be on call all the time.
Sure. What are you hearing about the job market in Western Mass over the last 6 to 9 months with COVID-19?
Well, anecdotally, I don't have many friends that are unemployed right now. So I always think of that as a real positive. And I have a lot of different, I would say a lot of industries that my friends are in. And again, the other thing is I'm hearing people who just want that stability and they want to know that they have a stream of income. So they're starting businesses that they never thought they would start before, and they're finding the time. They might have a job that they're doing during the day, and then at night they're doing something else just to make sure that they can support themselves and their families. And that's really what I'm hearing is it's not necessarily about the unemployment so much as it's just about people wanting to make sure that they can sustain their quality of life.
What's the biggest pressure on young people in the business world today?
I think the biggest pressure is getting ahead and how do you differentiate yourself? A lot of different industries rely on technology now. So it's about, do I have the right skills? Am I able to adapt? And is my employer going to give me what I need? Am I going to get the professional development? Will I have the mentor that I need to get to the next step? Because most people nowadays, they do, as you were saying, Dave, they start and they want to be the boss. They want to get there, whether it's that they start their own business at some point because they want to be their own boss, or they think they should be in management. And you know what? I think that's a positive. I think there are plenty of people who really do have that kind of, mindset and optimism about their own skill set. And I would rather have them in a position than have somebody who's just willing to take orders and do whatever's said. You have to have people that are able to, critically think about problems. There are lots of things that if we don't let people, speak up and tell management what they think, then the company isn't going to adapt either, and maybe the company won't survive in the end. So I think if young people today that are coming into the workforce are able to, of course, tactfully tell their point of view, then that is a really good skill set.
Tell me now, I want you to tell me if I'm wrong about this. I've had a theory for many, many years as far as young people going into the workforce today, that when I look at my generation, we were married early and we usually had our kids very young, and then the focus was on our career. I look at it now, and this is what I would see at the TV station too, is that young people now, they marry later, they have their families later, and their first focus is, okay, it's on the career. Let me get established before we take that next step. Is that a fair assessment?
I absolutely think that's true. Anecdotally, and I think the data shows it too, people are getting married later, they're starting families later, or not at all. And that's a choice that people are making because unfortunately, it's a lot harder to have the things that our parents had than it was perhaps, for the previous generation. So having a home, having, a 30-year, 40-year career somewhere is a lot harder. And so you have to pick the right partner. People, I think, are also less tolerant than they were in other generations about picking the right, picking the right partner and what they'll tolerate in a partnership. And I think those are really important things. Again, I have to go back to finding your voice. And I think if I've seen anything in the generation even younger than me, is that they are okay being independent. And that's a great thing. I think that's a really, really great thing. And I think for all intents and purposes, they are going to make us change. They're going to make us look at things and not be status quo. And there's nothing wrong with that. Change is inevitable and we all have to adapt to it. And none of us should think that we're going to be able to hold on to everything forever. But there's definitely a mindset with the younger generation, again, younger than even me, that, you know what, I can do it on my own. Unless I find someone that is good enough for me, I'm not settling, and I'm not settling in my career either. They're looking for the right employer and an employer that's going to let them have a voice and make them feel fulfilled and give them the freedom to be the best they can be at their job.
And I do find too that the young generation of today, and I look at my generation and think, well, I'm not going to change. I tried changing careers once, and it was a disaster. But that young people
did it, Dave.
Well, I tried public relations at Friendly's, and all I could say was the ice cream was great.
True story, though. That is true.
But is this fear of changing occupations, and what I admire really about young people of today is there is no fear. It's like, hey, why not? Let's try it.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. Why not? And for a lot of people, it might be, I'll try something because I have a 9-to-5 job, and now I can do something on the side, and until they are successful, and then perhaps they leave that 9-to-5 job. But I think what we'll see is a lot of change in the way that the world works for our economy as well. Like what types of jobs are going to be the wave of the future. So we know technology, obviously, that's always a big one. I'm in healthcare. Healthcare is always going to exist. People are always going to need to be taken care of. But these other types of service jobs or, software as a service, apps, we've seen all of that. There's a lot of creativity that is needed for that. And that's part of that freedom I was talking about. If we let young people be creative and make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes, I think that what we're going to see is a lot of good things and the betterment of society.
And YPS encouraging young people to do those types of things. And I'm sure the support they need to help get them through those kind of changes.
Well, absolutely. And I think part of that, when you talk about YPS, immediately I always think of networking and making new connections. And in order to make a business thrive, you need to know your market. So if you're not networking, you don't know what people are willing to buy and what they're willing to pay for it. And it's much harder to start a business when you have an idea if you don't know if there's a market than if you've done your market research, whether it's anecdotal or data driven. And both, of course, is best. And you want to make sure that you're out there and you're telling people about your business. Sometimes you are the best person to deliver that message instead of an advertisement. So unfortunately, a lot of things are happening on, virtually right now on Zoom, but it won't always be like this. And we'll be back to in-person events, hopefully, in 2021. And we will be able to say that we came out of this stronger, that we understand the market better, and that young people really are pushing that entrepreneurial base for our economy. That is going to be a huge piece of it.
In conversations with other business folks too, we've talked about, how there are many generations who are not adaptable to change, but COVID-19 has proven to all of us that you can change a business plan within a couple of weeks to really move forward.
And you have to. And part of that, to be honest, Dave, I think too, is do you have the right connections to do that? Because if you already know in your network, you have somebody who can help you set up your virtual, contacts with your customers, and you've got the software that you need, do you have people in your network that you can make phone calls to? And if you're not out there, then it's a lot harder. You got to do a lot more research than if you just can say, oh yeah, I met this person at an event and now I can give them a call and give them some business too. That's a great way for the community to be involved with each other and drive the economy. But if you're not out there and you're a business person, you might lose out and you might be second in line and your business is going to suffer for it. So I think the more people put themselves out there and get their business name out there, the better they're going to be. When, unfortunately, now we know we're not invincible and we're going to have to adapt. So absolutely.
And knowing too through YPS that you really shouldn't be and you can't be afraid to do those type of things.
You can't. And that's again with that mindset of the entrepreneurial mindset, risk taking. And the people that are risk averse in our current economy are probably not going to be sustainable. They need to be able to prepare for the future, but also be in the present. And I think the more that people are able to hone their own skills and do that professional development and be involved in their community, the better off. A lot of times with the younger generation, they can smell a phony from a mile away, and they want to know that a business is community involved and community focused, and that's who they want to work for. So if you want a young workforce, a workforce that's driven and has the skills, those hard skills a lot of times, as well as interpersonal skills, then the younger generation needs to be wooed a little bit. They need to understand that, companies' values.
Sure. We talk about risk. We're not talking crazy risk by any means. We're talking about well thought out risk.
Absolutely. And you can plan for certain risk, of course. Most people don't like risk, of course, right? We don't really, unless it's going on a roller coaster or something like that. But most people are going to want it to be stable and they want to know that they're going to get a paycheck. But some people are in a position where they might want to take that leap and they might want to start a new business. And small business is really kind of, really big right now. And certainly there are a lot of resources, and there are resources that are for free for small businesses. And we partner with some of those, the Small Business Center over at Stick. That's one of those places that we always direct people that are starting businesses to. They know the legal, things that you need to know to make sure that you're successful and that you're doing everything on the up and up.
I think the other thing too is that, folks, I think in just a natural instinct is, well, I'll get out of this myself. But there are so many resources that you touched upon around here that people really need to take advantage of, whether they're young business people or older business people. It's like they're there for the asking, they're there for the taking. So why not use them?
Absolutely. Another one that comes to mind is at Eisenberg. The Eisenberg School of Management at UMass have a number of different resources for small businesses as well. And furthering your education. Elms College is another great partner for YPS that helps people make sure that they have those, degrees behind them that give them the extra credential that they might need. And I think there are a lot of different places around here. And if anyone's interested, I'd be happy to share more information. I know we're getting to the end of our time, but certainly networking is another way to find out all about those resources too. And maybe, as I was saying, if you know somebody because you met them personally, chances are you're going to get a better spot in mind for some things than if you don't. So when it comes to resources, you've got to be a squeaky wheel.
And I think too, we often, those folks of us who have lived around here and grown up around here, we kind of take for granted the educational resources that are available to us through the 5 colleges and the community colleges and the private colleges here in Western Mass.
That's a great point, Dave. We have really, I think, an unprecedented amount of resources here as far as education, even just across our state and in Northern Connecticut. Within a 45-minute drive, people can be really anywhere. And now that a lot of these colleges are adapting themselves to technology, you could get a degree online, entirely online, and it's incredible. And what I love too is BayPath is another partner for us, and BayPath keeps adapting with the types of programs they offer, especially for their Masters of Science degrees. So they started, I believe, a degree just for teachers who are teaching online. I think that's incredible. So that's a really good example of adapting to the market and knowing what it needs and driving our economy so that we can all be successful, because now our kids are going to have better education because they'll be teachers who know how to teach online.
Now, actually, that brings me to the point. Are there teachers in YPS?
We have a few. We have actually, when we do these virtual events, we get some of the people who wouldn't traditionally come out to network at an in-person event. We've had people on our virtual events who maybe don't think of themselves as needing to network. So we have nursing people with nursing backgrounds. We have teachers and people who traditionally maybe aren't in sales or aren't in marketing or don't need to do that for their own small business. And so we do.
So you've seen more young people getting involved through COVID-19 through these virtual events.
So. We are definitely seeing different types of people getting involved.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to the need for people to have an outlet to give themselves new faces and new opportunities, as I mentioned, for fun and professional development.
Yeah, because if there's no fun involved in this, there's an element of craziness, especially during COVID-19, that could really overtake us all.
Absolutely. And as I said, people who are working from home and on screens all day, they get back on a screen for virtual networking. They want to have fun. They want to have laughs. They want to feel entertained in some way too, which is why we really tried to do some entertainment events. And we're going to continue to do that. And we are always looking for new partners and looking for new ideas. So if anyone listening to this has a small business that they want to promote or has some kind of idea for an event for YPS, please reach out to me, admin@springfieldyps.com. Would love to talk with them.
Tell me too about some of the events that YPS does hold. They do sound like fun, but.
Yeah, thank you. We just had a great golf tournament. We were able to do that, thankfully, with all the regulations. We had a successful golf tournament in September, which is our annual event. It's been going on for 13 years. So we were so happy that we didn't have to cancel this year. And that's really our biggest event of the year. But we have a field day that will be coming up in the spring, given all the regulations. We had to postpone it. But an adult field day, who doesn't want to go back to their elementary school days? Something different. We didn't see anything else like it in the area. So hopefully in the spring, we'll be able to hold that. And then, of course, we just have our virtual networking. As I mentioned, we have some DJ events coming up. We do trivia nights. We have a trivia night coming up next Thursday, the 22nd at 5:30. And that is for prizes. So we mail you gift cards, and sometimes we can actually email you the gift card too. And we're always looking for ideas. So for instance, we had a bartender come on and show us how to make some drinks. We're going to try to look to do that again. But again, it goes back to that entertainment.
As a nonprofit too, what has the impact of COVID-19 had on your fundraising? Obviously, you did your golf tournament, which one of the few golf tournaments that was held in this area.
Yes, and that's a great point. So what we've really been trying to focus on is maintaining the sponsors that we do have, and those partners are crucial to the success of YPS. So we've tried to maintain that sponsorship, and then also looking for businesses who want to get their message out. Some of the bigger employers in the area, I think, would do well to connect with us and make sure that their employees know that there is a place for them to go to meet new people, especially the companies who are recruiting from colleges and people are moving to Western Mass and don't know a soul. We have a new member who moved from Colorado, didn't know a soul, came to a virtual networking event, and now she has a group of friends where she probably during the pandemic wouldn't have been able to meet anyone new. So we've been a good resource for people as well.
That was one of the things I've heard of too during this pandemic, that many people are looking to get out of the bigger cities, and they're looking to places like Western Mass. So it's bringing a lot of new blood into here too. It seems like.
Absolutely, that's a great point. As I said, living in Boston for many years, coming to Western Mass, the quality of life that you can afford here is much, much, much different than it is in Boston. And everyone will say, "Oh, well, the salary is better in Boston." You know what? Things are just cheaper here, and it's the reality of it that. Where Boston keeps getting more and more expensive, Western Mass is pretty much staying the same status quo as far as salaries and I think you can just do better for yourself out here. And frankly, I think there's quite a lot of younger people out here. You know, being in a big city, you might go to the bars, but here in Western Mass, people actually want to hang out and they want to make friends with you. They want to make a real lasting relationship.
You know, after talking with you about this, I'm very encouraged and feel very good about our younger generation and where we're heading. And it sounds like we're in very good hands.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that, Dave. I have to say I have a really good board of directors, and being as a part of YPS has been transformative for me. Moving back here in 2013, I've made a really good group of friends, and as I mentioned, I have to give a lot of credit to YPS for helping me to make new friends when I moved back. And I think people should connect with us and they should learn more, and I would be happy to have conversation. You know, if people want to connect with me and tell them more about what YPS is about.
My thanks to Amie for taking time out to be my guest this week on the Even Better Western Mass podcast. To learn more about YPS, you can go to springfieldyps.com. Thanks for watching or listening to this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Stay safe, stay well, and if you can, join me next week.